welcome to Influence, a show all about the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. I'm your host, Jessica Graves. I'm excited to have a couple of guests who've recently traveled abroad with a team of students. So Dr. Freeman, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about how you got to Mississippi State?
So I'm an associate professor in fashion design and merchandising in the School of Human Sciences. And I have been at Mississippi State since 2011 via LSU, and have been enjoying my time here ever since.
Awesome. And you've been leading study abroad programs with fashion design and merchandising students, or FDM students, for quite some time now.
Yeah.
And we're here really today to talk about your new Global Game Changers study abroad program that was very interdisciplinary. Tell us a little bit about how that program came to be after all these years, and really tell us about the program.
Okay. So we've had a great participation in FDM in our study abroad programming. And in 2022, myself and Dr. Julie Parker led a smaller group, a post-pandemic smaller group of HDFS, Human Development Family Science students, and FDM abroad. And one of the really cool things we saw, especially during breakfast and when the students were mingling and talking, was how much they were sharing with each other.
Yeah.
And so we had a long discussion about how do we get more of that, and what if we open it up to all majors and to have this work. So we came up with the idea to do what we called Global Game Changers. And we involved groups from kinesiology, agriculture, fashion design, art, business, and so we put them all together on one trip. We had over 50 students with 5 faculty members traveling this summer. We went to Italy, Germany, and France. And the idea is that we take and allow them to do the group activities together, the typical activities you would do, and then they still are able to tailor in some discipline-specific items for it as well.
I love that, and I have some of my own experiences in those areas, and it is so cool to watch students, like you said, like they come from all different backgrounds and disciplines, but to see the synergy that they bring to the table at the breakfast table, that is really quite awesome. And so one of the things that I always say is really cool to see students have what I call those aha moments. What are some of those most rewarding things that you see among students? Like what do you find rewarding in working with students in an international setting like that?
I think the neat thing for me on those is that the students learn so much more outside of the traditional format of teaching.
Absolutely.
And you know, I tell them that probably 70 to 80% of what you're going to learn on this trip is outside of your interactions with me. And I think that's really cool for them to be able to apply what they're learning in an international setting.
Yes.
And for me, I think one of the neatest things that we get to see on study abroad is how a lot of students will say, hey, I met people last night from Texas A&M, and they know my roommate in Starkville, and they're 3,000 or 4,000 miles away. And so I think those kinds of experiences that students have, and it makes the world much smaller for them.
Yeah, and we say that a lot. Like the older we get, the smaller the world gets.
Yes, absolutely.
But kind of leaning into that topic of shrinking of the world as we get older, the students really kind of lean into that and form those connections. I often say, like, life is really about relationships, and so for them to be able to form bonds with some on their own team, but especially as you meet people in a different country and grow the professional networks, how do you see students really doing that? Like, how do you see them building their professional network on these types of trips?
You know, what we see a lot of on these is that just a jump in confidence levels in students. And so when they first get into the country, they're like, I can't even find a bathroom. But then by the time they're leaving, like, oh yeah, if you jump on this train and then change here and then you go on this subway line, and just their confidence is so much greater because they're experiencing it firsthand. And they're having to navigate a little bit on their own. And so they're kind of playing with a safety net with us there. And I think that helps them to build those professional networks because they are more willing to talk with people. They're more willing to engage. And they see that communication happens similarly all over the world. You know, even sometimes if you don't even speak the same language.
Yeah, a smile goes a long way oftentimes.
A smile goes a very long way, is correct.
Yeah. So one of the things I've always loved about the students in the FDM program is that they really have a culture, and I'm going to say that you and some of your colleagues have really set this tone, but it's a culture of not if they're going to study abroad, it's really about when are you going to study abroad and where are you going? But some of that has maybe changed a little bit post-pandemic. Can you speak a little bit to what you've seen post-pandemic and maybe that same culture? Is it still going to thrive where students are truly waiting to study abroad, or do you think that has been stifled a little bit?
I think it's still going to thrive. I mean, we had a lot of students interested in our study abroad. We took more than 25 students on study abroad last year, again with our FDM group on 2 separate trips. And so, but the concept of doing study abroad and the value that an international student an international experience brings to a student is so important for success as they get their first job and as they go out in the industry. And so for us, it's important for us, and we want to make it important for students. And so we really stress that importance of the culture there.
Well, thank you. We're running a little bit short on time, but thank you so much for taking the time to kind of help those students spread their wings. It really goes a long way.
We appreciate
Thanks
it.
for joining us. Up next, we'll see from Dr. Leah Pilot, another faculty member from Food Science, Nutrition, Health Promotion. Stay tuned.
Think you know ag? Think again.
We are creative.
We protect the environment.
We prepare for careers in medicine and conduct research.
We empower people and communities.
We are technology driven.
And we feed and clothe the world. We are the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences at Mississippi State University.
Hey there, and welcome back to Influence. Up next is Dr. Leah Pilot. She is an assistant professor in Food Science, Nutrition, and Health Promotion. Welcome, Dr. Pilot. So we've just heard from Dr. Charles Freeman about the Global Game Changers study abroad program that just took place a few weeks ago, really. So you guys are kind of fresh in getting back. But tell us about what your role was with that particular program, and really introduce yourself as well formally.
Yeah, sure. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me. My role in the program really was for the students who maybe didn't have a fit in some of the other areas. So I was kind of the ag, nutrition, health. We had students represented from landscape architecture, animal dairy sciences, nutrition. There was lots of different students. So ours was, we had a multidisciplinary program, and then inside of our concentration, we also were very diversified. So it was a unique experience, but at the same time, everyone eats every single day. So we really enjoyed, doing some of the experiences around agriculture and learning about some of the different practices in different countries. So it was a really good experience for them to meet other people and to travel the world.
That's awesome. And so you really are from a health promotion background. So tell us a little bit about what did you see through your own lenses of traveling abroad into some of these countries, and maybe how that relates specifically to health promotion?
So we really tried to look at this trip from a systems perspective, and really looking from a large big picture around policies affecting health, all the way down to the individual and how they interact with one another in relationships. So we kind of took that lens, and our students were, throughout the trip, they were encouraged to notice things. How was the environment set up? Were there sidewalks? Like, what was the bus system? How are we commuting? How are we getting from place to place? Was it easy? Just different things. Even things like literacy, like how does it, how are you at understanding, how to get from here to there, understanding the policy around food handling and that sort of thing. So we really did find a lot of connection, even if the students weren't all in the same major, because policies really can affect you in all your life. So
That's a really good point too. Oftentimes we think about maybe being around like-minded people, but I think both of you this morning have shared really the value of being in an interdisciplinary group and bringing those different perspectives to the table, whether it be for policy making purposes or simply just sharing education on a new topic, you know. So I know specifically you guys kind of got some really rural experiences, specifically with a dairy goat farm.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
And so you got to a farm to table experience.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
honestly, it was one of my favorite parts of the entire trip. Our students had the opportunity to go to what they're calling a micro goat farm. So it is a woman-owned business who she was actually working in industry, and then she came to find that farming is really her true passion. Yeah. So we were able to go out on the Italian countryside. We were able to meet her goats, milk her goats. Then they moved in, and we were able to make some cheese. And then from that cheese, they actually got to sample different types of goat cheese and then eat some of the cheese that they had just made that morning. Yeah. So it was just really a fun experience just to be out on the Italian countryside and meeting these people and asking questions about how she came to find, you know, this work and some of her struggles and some of the things that she's learned from it. So it was a really good experience for our students to see someone who'd walked that path and then just to really enjoy the culture that was behind it and the true authentic experience. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So you studied abroad as a student.
Yes.
And now you've had the opportunity to lead a study abroad program. Tell us a little bit, like, what are some words of encouragement? Oftentimes we see students who are maybe on the fence about whether to do this, or maybe there's uncertainty and fear around studying abroad. So what words of encouragement would you give to the student that may be in that situation?
So as a student, I literally had to take a step out of my comfort zone, and you know, I had never really traveled to Europe before. And so if I can encourage a student to just do the same, to just step outside of their comfort zone and just see what the world offers, there'll be some similarities and then there'll be some really big differences. And I think that it's really eye-opening and very important for students to really just get a global perspective. So to take themselves here at Mississippi State and then just globally experience the world, it's really important, I think, for their future too, just to give them a different perspective.
I agree 100%. And Dr. Freeman touched on that as well, about really preparing those students for the next step in their professional careers. Well, I thank you so much for being here this morning with us and sharing a little bit about your own experiences and some words of encouragement. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode about study abroad, and if you're a student watching this episode, perhaps you'll consider study abroad as those opportunities arise. Thank you for joining us on Influence. We'll see you next time.